Welcome to Comics CC Studio. I am your host, Brent. This is episode 47, and we are building a home for people who love comics, cosplay, and conventions. So pull up a chair, grab a coffee or tea, and settle in. So today's episode will spotlight guest Justin Monk. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How is the weather there?
Vancouver's beautiful right now, actually. Not too
Nice.
hot and sunny out, so which is a big thing if you're no Vancouver. It being sunny out, not raining.
Okay. A lot of rain during the year.
Oh yeah. Well
Okay.
known for it.
I gotcha. So we're not here to talk about rain, but we are here to talk to Justin about he worked on the Superman suit for Tyler Hoechlin and also got to wear it as well on the show Superman and Lois. If you're unfamiliar with the show, I highly recommend it. So we first met at SummerCon, and it was interesting. I don't know if you know this or if I told you, but so I was in Superman cosplay and I was like trying to get a picture with another guy I think you were talking to because I don't think you were in cosplay the first day. Um,
uh, no, not as Superman.
right.
That was in something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think so I was standing there. I think your wife was like, "Oh yeah, get a picture with him." And I think she said something like, "Yeah, he worked on the on Tyler Hoechlin's suit or whatever." And of course, Tyler Hoechlin was there. So I'm like, "What?" And so that's how we first got connected. And I'm like, okay, it's one thing to go to a convention because you're meeting a celebrity. And in my opinion, like I believe in God. So I believe it was a divine appointment because I'm just like, who in the world, like I've never met anybody else that's worked on like a network television show or a suit or anything like that, at least that I know of. So I just thought it was really cool meeting you there.
Yeah. No, it was really fun. That's one of the things I love about that particular convention is that it's afforded me the ability to see some American actors because they don't always come to Vancouver, especially. So I've got to reconnect with like Grant Gustin there and John Wesley Shipp and see people I want to see as well.
Yeah,
'Cause I'm also a big nerd, big fan. So
that's great, man. So let's talk about your journey into working on Superman and Lois, and then we'll go into some cosplay stuff, and then we'll come
yeah.
back to it. So, and I don't even know some of this stuff. So for anybody listening, so tell us a little about yourself and your background, and then how did you get started in costume work?
Yeah, well, I've been doing costuming since like early 2000, since Attack of the Clones came out. That was what,
Oh, wow.
2001. And before that I'd done, fun costumes at home kind of thing, I had a bathrobe Jedi, but I wanted to kind of like do those things that everyone you see on TV when they line up for Star Wars, whatever. I wanted to do that. So I, had a proper Jedi costume made and went to that. I was the only one in costume at that theater. Um, but I really started really liking it and getting involved in groups and stuff like that, and then eventually expanding past just Star Wars and just costuming in general. I just got really into the weeds of details. Um, and I'm a graphic designer. I went to school for graphic design, so oftentimes I kind of translated that, just planning out details and the longevity and knowing where things go and like, just figuring out how things fit together. Is a really big part of graphic design. So it really helped with the
Hmm.
costuming aspect. Um, but because of the graphic design, I also uh, learned how to do some advanced things that I didn't even know I could do at the time, right? So when I started a YouTube channel in, oh gosh, now like 2006, 2007-ish, maybe a little bit later, talking about costumes and props because that was my big
Okay.
thing. And so I talked about costumes I made and props I made. And at the time, Arrow was on.
Oh,
And I think
nice.
Flash was either, it was just about, it hadn't been, I don't think it, I think we're talking like Arrow season 1 or 2. So
Okay.
Flash hadn't been, it wasn't quite there yet. This is just the Arrowverse.
Yeah.
And I started looking to doing the Green Arrow costume and recreating the bow and meeting up with people online to discuss on the replica prop forum, making our own group to talk about things. And through that, I started to, again, doing more and more YouTube content based on that. And one thing that happened is being with the Facebook groups is that some people who worked on the show were like wanted to be part of the group so they
Hmm.
could share. little bits of details or whatever. Or
The
they
show
just really
Green
like to
Arrow.
see
The show Green
the
Arrow.
show is grocery great. So we
Okay.
had the time I had the prop master on
Oh
my
wow.
group, my Facebook group. I had the archery technician. I had a couple costume people. So it was really fun, and it was whatever. But then I was looking at that, going, oh, you know, what'd be really fun. And I lived in Ontario at the time, which is if you're an American listener, it's just north of Rochester. And so I was like, well, going over all the way to Vancouver, that would be fun. I've never been to Vancouver,
Hmm.
but I should do that and interview these people. So I did that, set that up, and then I also was directed to the people who made the costumes for the show, which was Ocean Drive Leather, who I was familiar with because they also worked on Smallville.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, yeah, they worked on the Green Arrow costume for that, the Clark's red leather jacket, a whole bunch of other things. They made the trench coat too, but they made lots of things. That's where they got their start on making a lot of superheroes.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I was familiar. So I was like, hey, can I come interview you guys? So then I came and I interviewed the quiver maker, the archery tech, the prop master, and Ocean Drive Leather, and that was pretty cool. And left and thought this was great. I got to have this visit in Vancouver, got to meet these people, got to see some of the costumes and props up close, got to go to the prop lockup for Arrow. I was like, this is really cool. Get to touch and hold these props that I've been done watching on TV. And but I kept in contact, especially with Ocean Drive Leather, and they're like, oh, so what do you do for a living? I'm like, well, I'm a graphic designer, I make things and
Hmm.
I'm big into costuming and stuff. And so they were sending me stuff and they're like, uh, laser cutting came up and laser etching.
Okay.
And they said, have you ever done that on leather? And I was like, well, no, I've done it on plastics. I've done it on a
Hmm.
bunch of other stuff. So
Yeah.
I tried it on leather and I etched a Batman emblem, full
Nice.
size, Ben Affleck style with the weathering and stuff. And it came out great. And they were like, this could be really interesting for us. Because oftentimes when costume makers are making things for film, and you
Hmm.
will you will see this, they have like, here's a catalog of all the textures you can buy.
Okay.
And like, for instance, there's this particular texture from a leather company in the States called, I think it's called Windy or Windy, but probably Windy. It shows up on Star-Lord's costume on his boots, Martian Manhunter's cape, Superman's boots, like tons of costumes. If you're like, oh, I need texture, here's a texture thing. I think it shows up in Star Trek as well.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's just one of those things. Like, here's all they have. And what was really tickling Ocean Drive Leather's thoughts was, well, if you can laser etch custom things into leather, that means you can have custom textures that are
Hmm.
character dependent. So they asked if I would be willing to work for them remotely, and then they asked if I'd move to Vancouver.
Oh wow.
So I was like, oh, geez, that was a big decision at the time. Before moving, or just as I was moving, was when Tyler was announced as Superman on
Okay.
Supergirl.
Okay.
And of course, there was a whole bunch of hubbub about that.
Hmm.
If you remember, there was complaints about him being from Teen Wolf. There was complaints about the costume, you name it. And they had messaged me going, "Hey, do you want to see Tyler Hoechlin's muscle suit?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I do."
Right.
And so that was my first intro into Superman. Because by the time I got there, by the time I took the job and I got here in August of 2016, Superman was already done and like he was already on camera. So and he was in what, two episodes I think that season when he finally got to have Tyler play him. We,
Okay.
only a couple. He was only in a couple
Yeah. Yeah.
episodes. So I missed it. I was like, damn it, Superman. And but I got to jump right into doing Green Arrow stuff and Miss Martian with Ocean Drive and starting small. We didn't really do anything special yet, and it wasn't until I started working on the Flash, his season four, what would become his season four outfit, that I really started really doing the whole custom textures with lasers in leather.
Okay. And at this
And
point,
so,
were you
yeah,
in Vancouver? Or
yes.
had you
So I
moved at
moved to
that
Vancouver.
point?
Yeah, yeah, and we started working in the fall with laser textures,
Okay.
which was kind of funny. Actually, the first costume I did laser etching custom texture was for Black Canary, but her costume was delayed a whole season.
Hmm.
So she was the first one, but she ended up being the second one that showed up on screen.
Okay. As far as work that you had done.
The work that I've done specifically. And of course, they taught me how to do like a lot of other things. Like I got really into the costume making aspect of like preparing leather. There's a position in costume making that I didn't really know about, but just called cutter. And
Hmm.
basically someone who just cuts the patterns and then they hand it off to the
Okay.
stitchers. And but I was like, so I did a lot of cutting, learned a lot about leather, learned a lot about
Okay.
stretch. Um, but then I also got to handle a lot of fabrics and stuff, and I was like, this is crazy. And it wasn't long before Tyler's suit came in for repairs because of the leather cape and stuff, and it was made in LA. So a local company doing leather work that's already doing superhero shows, well, we'll get them to do a few things here and there. So there was a scene I remember that they had Superman and Supergirl fight in a water fountain. And so that cape came back to see if we could fix it because it was soaking wet.
Hmm.
And I remember looking at it going, "Oh, this is cool," and shaking and all the fake glass coming out of it. And I was like, "Okay,
Oh,
this
wow.
is fun." And I put it on my shoulders and I was like, "Look, this is cool." But it wasn't long before the suit showed up, which I immediately asked if I could put on, and I did.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
And that was the one
and
Tyler had worn on
that was one,
Superman?
yeah, it was the hero one, yeah. Now I will say as a caveat to that is part of the fun of my body type. I'm 6'2".
Hmm.
I'm about 190 pounds. So I'm not like built or anything, but I have broad shoulders, which makes me the perfect size for trying something on to see about movement, fit,
Okay.
whatnot. Um, you throw a muscle suit on me, and all of a sudden I can match roughly. Not perfect, obviously, because everyone's a little different, but it does allow for without having to have the actor keep coming in and be like, okay, can you try this now? So oftentimes I would pilot test fits, just because I was roughly the same size. But I took that role very excitedly because like, oh, can you put the Superman costume on? I'm like, oh, I guess I can do that. Uh, and I love. They never ever sent the whole costume though, so I was always like, I got to wear the most I got to wear was like the cape and the onesie, but not the boots or the
Oh,
belt.
okay.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, this would be great if I could wear the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, as far as so explain more. You talked about you talked about texture or whatever. So
Mhm.
explain to somebody that might not know, like when you're talking about texturing a costume, like kind of explain like what that means just in like layman's terms, just in case somebody's
Yeah,
like, what's like what does he do or what's what is that type of thing? Just so we get an
texture,
understanding.
yeah, texture has really exploded. I think most people are more familiar with it now because you can see it. Like Star Trek uses it in Strange New Worlds. It's all on their sleeves. All the superheroes have it. Deadpool has it. Superman has it. On like the Henry Cavill ones, you can really tell it's that repeating um, image that goes across the whole costume or in pieces of the costume to give it more than just like a flat look. Like if
Okay.
you look at Christopher Reeve's costume, for instance, it's just the lycra, right? That's all it is, and that's fine. But then by the time you get to the newer era of things, in order to get definition or to make it look visually interesting,
Okay.
textures are introduced, and that includes like even the capes, like the cape for Superman initially being leather. That's a different texture than just like a fabric cape.
Okay.
So oftentimes you just want that little bit extra. So
Hmm.
when the Flash first came out, because Green Arrow at the time he didn't have any textures or anything on him, but Flash did. He had all the little lightning bolts all over his costume.
Oh, okay.
So when they wanted to do the new one, those were silk screened, which is the very common way of doing it for all of these
Okay.
costumes. But when I started doing the laser, I would laser in that texture. So, for instance, on the season 4 Flash costume, he's got little tiny lightning bolts that are etched in to a leather so that they're
Okay.
permanently in there, and then it gives a textured look to it that's not just flat leather.
Yeah, a little more depth.
Yeah, and Tyler's costume has little is his like chainmail.
Okay.
Tyler's Superman. All of his costumes have the same texture. Well, except for his very last one. But anyway, but it has like this little loopy chainmail look, and so that's his texture.
Okay.
So uh, oftentimes it's character dependent. So I think Tyler, Superman, and Mon-El have the same texture, but like Supergirl has a different texture, for
Okay.
instance.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Well, that's very helpful, I think, for people to kind of know what that means. I mean, I think kind of know, but I think to hear that. So if I am getting this right, you got the suit. So like the suit that they were going to have the actor wear, you would get
yep.
it and you would do is it done by laser?
Well,
So you,
no, so Superman we had because someone else made it at that time.
okay.
But what we'd get is we'd get the actual we'd make build the whole suit. So like the
Oh,
Flash, Green Arrow, those are all fully built. So the costume designer would work with our pattern makers and
hmm,
they would be like, I want this piece textured, I want this piece textured, or I would like to have textured, and then they work together to figure out where to put the texture, and then I would get given the pattern piece
okay.
and I'd come up with the texture. I'd do samples and see what one works well,
Right.
and then do tons of tests. I think with the Flash, which was the first time really doing crazy textures and backing, it was 8 samples, different ways of doing it
Wow.
before landing on the one that we did.
Okay.
Um, so it's it's just kind of fun of playing with it. But the cool thing is, uh, before when you get like the silk screen textures, is that they'd get a 2 foot by 3 foot silk screen sheet
Hmm.
and then you get like a bunch of sheets. So you're limited by that. Whereas my way of doing it is I could laser etch the pattern the same every single time.
Oh, wow.
So because it's done by computer, so I'd take the pattern piece and the pattern piece would cut out at the same time as the texture, so it'd be perfect.
Okay.
Um,
And now would
which
that
really
be,
helped.
yeah, now would that be glued onto the suit, or did you, when you got the final piece, did you actually get the suit and put it in the piece?
No, that it'd be sewn in. So
Oh,
like I'd get
sewn in.
the whole pattern piece, and then they would just it would be part of the build process.
Okay. And they would
So
sew that. So you would do the texture, then they'd sew that together, and that was what made the completed suit that they would have.
correct, yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's jump back to Superman and Lois in just a little bit. It sounded
Mhm.
like let's talk about cosplay because I was looking and
Yeah.
seeing you're currently building something too. But like, so like, when did you first discover, I guess, cosplay? You talked about maybe having costumes around the house or whatever when you were younger.
Yeah, yeah. Cosplay wasn't really a term until much later in my costume making journey, right? So
Okay,
like I did costuming.
gotcha.
Um and like I said for Attack the Clones was the first time I did it, but then Star Wars fan clubs pretty much um is what kind of took over what I was doing, right? So you do the fan
Okay.
events and parades and stuff. Um when I started doing conventions more, that's when I started doing other things, wanting to do other costumes, cosplays, and that's when I started doing things like Ghostbusters and Stargate, and um, working my way towards doing the Green Arrow at the time because I was really diving into that, and which again is what helped get the job up here. But
Hmm.
uh, I was trying to like perfect it and work on that. That was my first real, not including things as a child. My first real superhero costume was Green Arrow, because it was a very much more grounded uh attainable costume, right? It's a jacket and
Hmm.
pants, right? It's not no unitards and
Right.
whatnot. So and no texture, right? So it was great. Um but then sit like and then in the interim, one as I was doing more and more and more, I started getting to pushing my boundaries. And so like I made my own Superman costume, which I am making another new Superman costume. It's in the works. I'm gathering materials.
Fantastic.
And just kind of figuring out what I like to do. I've really enjoyed working on the Witcher leather costumes that I've been working on, replicating the season 2 and now the season 3 Henry Cavill look. But it's the same thing. I look at the item, I try and figure out how the pieces go together. I research all the little minute details, and then I go for it. So that has always been what my cosplay journey is. It's what looks cool, what has some challenge, and what would be fun to wear.
Yeah. And you may have already answered this, but were there any excuse me, any costumes or movies, and maybe it was Star Wars, that inspired you early on to kind of get into making costumes?
Yeah, Star Wars definitely Star Trek, and the '90s Flash.
Okay.
That was when I was like, that is so cool. That is so different. Despite the fact that it was not that different than like '89 Batman as far as when you look at the layers. But like it was cool. It was different. It was neat seeing differences between screen and page and whatnot. So yeah, those were very influential. I loved the Lois and Clark Dean Cain Superman show, but that never
Mhm.
really like that just I just loved that Superman costume. It wasn't like, oh, I want to have a Superman costume. It's just like this is
Right.
although it did inform things I liked about Superman. Like it was like always like, oh, these logos are too small. Look at Dean Cain's, it's massive. Um, because like every time you see a Superman logo, that's one of the first comments everyone always makes
Right.
is, "Oh, the logo's too small." Like even the newest pictures like just came out for for was it the sequel to Superman.
Mm-mm.
His logo, his image, his glyph is bigger, and people are already going, "Oh, look, they changed the glyph. It's bigger now. That's good." Because
Right.
David's people immediately complain about David's emblem being too small, right? So,
Hmm.
I think Dean Cain's costume design definitely informed a lot of people's assumptions, but it didn't push me for costume stuff
Okay.
as much as the Star Wars and Star Trek and like I said, in like 90s Flash and probably some other things I'm not even thinking about right now. But
Hmm. Do you remember your first convention, and was that when you cosplayed first? I know you said you were kind of in the Star Wars fan club or whatever, so you did that. But as far as conventions go, what was your first cosplay, and do you remember what your first convention was?
yeah, my first real convention going to when I finally was able to go to them was Toronto Trek, and I don't remember which number it was, which, as the name sounds, it was in Toronto and it was
Okay.
predominantly a Star Trek convention.
Okay.
But they had started opening to a greater sci-fi appeal at that point. And I went in a Stargate costume, and it was
Okay.
the beginning of my Stargate costume. So I had pants, boots, and a vest and black t-shirts. I didn't have a lot of the elements that makes it, a full Stargate costume. So that was
Hmm.
my first time, and I helped man a table, and I met some people, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Looking back, what do you remember most about that costume and about going to that convention even?
Oh, that was the time of actually getting to meet actors,
Okay.
right? Getting to see these people, um, and it's changed a lot since that first one. Like, um, Renee, who played Odo on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, he was
Hmm.
just at a table across from me. Like we were sitting at this fan table for our Stargate group, and
Okay.
just over there, he was there, and you could just go up talk to him, and so it
Oh
was
wow.
very different. But that's then we did a group photo with everyone who was there for Stargate. We did it with one of the actors there, and I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it was Corin Nemec, who played Jonas Quinn on Stargate SG-1. But for me, he was Parker Lewis Can't Lose, and that was a big. I was like, oh my God, he's here, and he's just walking around, and that's what I remember about that convention experience. I'm always still wishing they were back to that because they're so much bigger now,
Hmm. Yeah.
so much more trade related. So you don't get to bump into them. I rode an elevator with Garrett Wang from Star Trek Voyager. I bumped
Okay.
into George Takei outside
Oh
having a
wow.
cigarette. Like you don't get that anymore,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's much more kind of like the celebrities and then the fans.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and get back to well, let me ask this as far as your personal cosplay or costume experience, how do you think that helped prepare you for working professionally?
Yeah, so that I was specifically hired because of my enthusiasm for costume details.
Okay.
So because I care about the details, because I care about the characters, because I cared about um, how they looked and the history of the characters, prepared me more than I thought it would
Mm,
for working at Ocean Drive Leather. Funny enough, the amount of phone calls I would field from costume designers asked them to explain. Can you tell me what Argo is? Can you tell me what colors we should use for Smallville's jackets and Superman and Lois? And but we can't use these colors. And I'm like, well, you've taken away all the good colors. And just ask my opinion.
wow.
Was a bright spot because having that background and my enthusiasm and my love for the characters um, brought with it. I think just it made work stressful, but also exciting. For example, if you want to know what stressful was, one of my first tasks of airbrushing was repainting. Excuse me, repainting all of the Reverse Flash jackets,
Oh wow.
and I was like to my bosses, well, those are just jackets, they're just
Hmm.
jackets.
Yeah.
Just repaint them. And I'm like, yeah, but it's Reverse Flash's jackets. Like this is a character on the show
Mm.
that people are going to see on TV. And I'm like, my lake test gloves when I took them off were like just pools of like sweat coming out of it because I was so nervous
Oh
about
wow.
screwing it up, right?
Mm.
And which was what they said to me. Oh, just don't mess it up. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah. Well, I
So.
Yeah, I really love that you are so passionate about the characters and about the costume and the detail. And I think that the people that are, I mean, a lot a day in today's world, I'm sure could be covered up by CGI and this and that and AI or whatever. But I think when you look at people that are actually working on the project and they have that passion for the character, or even the little details. Like you said, no, this is the Reverse Flash. It's not just a jacket. They're like, oh,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
jacket, paint it, because their mindset is totally different, right? Than the costume people. They're like, we just want a good show. We want it to do well. We
yep.
want it to run. But the people that work on it, that really are invested more in the characters. I just think that's really great that you kind of had that mindset. Now, when you were working there, did you feel like other people working on those costumes had the same level of care, or did you feel like to some people it was maybe just a job?
It was mixed. I mean, for some
Okay,
people, it was definitely a job. Very skilled people, very talented, but they didn't care about the characters in the same way. They cared about their work. They wanted their work
right,
still to look very, very
of
nice.
course.
But not everyone. There was a couple of us though that were big fans that worked, and like one of my coworkers was at the time a very big Harry Potter fan. And then when
Mm,
Tom Felton came in for his Flash costume, like because he was a villain on the Flash, he had to come in, and so Tom Felton came in professionally, which made her really super excited. Uh, and so like she wore a Harry Potter shirt and that kind of thing. So
that's so cool.
like there was a few of us. There was a few of us for sure.
Yeah. I think so. You already talked about the opportunity to work on the Superman suit. Was there anything
Mhm.
else as far as that coming on? Um, when was it just your role and it was like you were kind of plugged into that role, or was it specifically like was there something else that they were like, no, we want him working specifically on Superman suit?
No, so like because like we 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 worked as a project base, right?
Okay.
And because our shop was predominantly working on the super suits,
Mm-hmm.
whenever a new super suit would come up, they'd come talk to us first, one way or the other. So when specifically the Superman suit that I put a lot of effort and that I worked the most on out of all of them was the Fleischer suit. And they wanted to have a meeting, and my bosses wanted me included because at least I would understand what they're asking
Oh
for,
wow.
and I could translate in a way that because they don't look at it the same way, right? And so they like that. So I'd be often pulled into meetings talking about character costumes because I knew what the character was, but I'd
Yeah.
also professionally know our capabilities, what would be feasible, what we could and couldn't do, what we should try.
Mm.
Um, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. Sometimes I had brilliant ideas that were adopted, and sometimes I'd have ideas that were vetoed out. Like with the Fleischer suit, for instance, was I did make a yellow S for the back as a way to try and
Okay.
get them to put a S on the cape, and that was vetoed by the
Mm.
producers, which is fine, but I still did it because I still wanted to show it.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
um, yeah, come on, because I'm like, he's supposed to have his cape. And I know he didn't in the cartoon, but like, come on.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and then of course the James Gunn went and did it. So unfortunately he beat everyone to the punch of putting that S back on the cape.
But your idea
Um,
was there, right? So, I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
James Gunn
Well,
should
and
have called you.
yeah, like I wish. I actually know the person who worked on that Superman tech, who did my job when I was doing at Ocean Drive,
Okay.
did in LA, and they worked on David's suit. So
That is neat. That is really neat. You said is specifically on the Superman suit. Now, was the Fleischer suit the only suit that you worked on, or did you work on? I know you talked about the cape, Tyler's cape coming back, and like
yeah,
all the things. So what, like which, yeah, kind of which suits, I guess, and what seasons did you work on those suits?
yeah, I helped work on different elements of the Supergirl suits,
Okay.
and the season 1 and 2 Superman suits. So the season 3 and 4, when you started getting to um, his last 2 seasons, I didn't work on those ones.
Okay.
The team still did. The team at Ocean Drive, my assistant that was my assistant at the time, who basically took over my job when I left there in 2021, did continue uh,
Okay.
working on them and stuff like that. So. Um, but within that, I mean, like I worked on, I did work on Tal Rho, um, on Superman Lois, and
Okay.
created his glyph,
Mm-hmm.
which had to be approved by DC Comics, which was the weirdest thing.
Wow.
Because yeah, the showrunner had drawn out like 9 different ideas for glyphs, and
Okay.
then they had their favorite, and I took that and I had to make it match the existing style that Tyler's and Supergirl had already kind of come up with.
Okay.
And then gave them a couple different iterations. They told me to choose which iteration I liked the best, and then DC Comics had to approve it, and then we created it, and then that was history because at that point it went on his holographic father, um, and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I worked on a lot of stuff in that. I worked on Lara's costume, worked on Jor-El's costume, which was really crazy and sad because we worked on it with a fit model, and I love Angus McFadden. Braveheart's my favorite movie, and I was like, oh, but he only stayed in LA, so we shipped the costume, and he did it all on green screen. But I did put my name and Kryptonian on his shoulders because
That
you know
is
I had to.
awesome.
Well,
That is
it was really fun. Because the Jor-El costume was a new take.
okay.
They they actually listened to some ideas I had, which was super cool. Which is one side of his cape strap clasp, if you can picture the costume. One
Hmm.
had Kryptonian writing on it, and the other had like a texture that I came up with. But the texture was evocative of the original Kryptonian costumes, the red and black ones with the weird sleeves,
Okay.
like which was kind of like a knotted scribbly look. I incorporated that scribbly look in the other shoulder pads. So,
Okay.
and then on the Kryptonian side, I put the entire House of L family line,
Oh wow.
uh, and then I put my name and the costume designer's name. And then what's really cool is they wanted Kryptonian on the belt. You can't see this on the show, which is
Okay.
too bad. But
Okay.
on the show, he's got a big buckle, and then it kind of like wings out around, and there's Kryptonian that runs along the sides
Oh,
of that.
neat.
So what I did is I took Marlon Brando's speech, turned it to Kryptonian on one side, and then on the other side, I took Russell Crowe's Jor-El speech,
Oh
and I did that
wow.
Kryptonian on the other side. So completely geek moment. No one's ever going to see that
Wow.
unless it shows up somewhere and they translate it. But no, that was a very purposeful
Wow.
uh,
That is
geek moment.
yeah, that is amazing. And yeah, and I wonder like how many other people that are have their hand in doing costumes of things do little things like that you never know about.
Oh
They're
yeah,
like, I'm
lots.
gonna do it
Yeah.
because I can, and why not, right? And it's awesome someone that actually care. Again, you care and you're a fan, and you're like, oh, this is awesome. I'm gonna do this. So yeah, that is I really enjoy that. So is there anything else um that the details of the suit or things that you worked on? I mean, that's definitely a
Yeah.
detail that fans wouldn't have realized. But anything else on the Tyler suits that
Yeah.
you worked on that people might not know?
Yeah, there's the mandate for the Fleischer suit was they wanted to reference Christopher Reeve's style as much as possible.
Okay.
So they didn't want textures, they didn't want any modern convenience. So even the glyph is all leather, it's all suede.
Okay.
So I developed a system in order to get the 3 layers of color because it's got the yellow border, right? And the
Okay.
black background, the red S. But the one thing that the other task, because there wasn't a lot of 3D or texture work on it, so I was given that to do. But then I was also given the belt buckle.
Mm.
And so I did 2 different belt buckle designs. One was a not very, but like a modernized take on like the classic oval with like high peaks and bevels. And then the other one I gave was a straight up copy of Christopher Reeves. I found all the reference online and I made it look that, and then we made it brass in color, right, to match
Wow.
the aesthetic. And I gave them the choice. So here's the 2 I've come up with. I could do more if you want me to, but like here's my first attempts. I printed them out in resin and then painted them and showed them on the belt what it would look like. And they asked me to explain why I did them that way. So I did, and it didn't take long. They said, "We want the Christopher Reeve one because you made it look like Christopher Reeve. We want that one."
Mm.
So the whole reason his belt buckle, and again, I mean, I guess you can kind of see it on the second episode he wears it. But if you look at it now, it very purposely supposed to look like the Christopher Reeve one because I wanted to reference it. I didn't think they're going to choose. I thought they were going to choose the referenced one, the one that's like more modern, but no, they wanted the straight up the Christopher Reeve style. So yeah, that's a fun little design detail that was very purposeful
Yeah, that's
from my end of things.
fantastic. And so and that was the only one, right? They didn't make multiples. Like it was your design, your thing, and that's what went on
Yep,
the suit.
that went on the suit. Yeah, and I think we made like 4 suits of
Okay.
that particular suit. But yeah, that we printed it, we cast it in rubber, we glued it to the belts, and then it went on screen. Yeah,
Yeah. That's that's really cool. Let me see here. Also, so what about I know you said what was the experience like wearing Tyler's suit when they sent it in? I know you
Oh,
said you never got to wear the whole
yeah.
thing, but like
Well,
what was that
yeah.
like?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. The exception to wearing the whole thing was the Fleischer suit because it was all built together. And
Okay.
I have photos of me wearing it with his season one boots, so it's kind of funny. But and I had to. There was a point that it was a little too tight in areas on Tyler, so they threw it on me 'cause I had to wear it to help. It was awesome. I ran through the shop all the time with my arms up like this, flying through.
Nice.
I got to be Superman, right? I got to
Wow.
be. There's a picture on my Instagram, I think, as well, where I had to test the rip open shirt as well.
No
I had to
way.
test it
Of
because
course.
it was just like a vest, basically, right?
Okay.
When Tyler finally has his shirt rip in the Fleischer suit in the flashback, that is just like not even sleeves, right? Which obviously, right? It's a
Okay.
fake, it's a pretend suit underneath. But I had to
Hmm.
test it, so got to put it on, and we only made one of those.
Wow.
Um, so I got to have a lot of fun with that. Wearing his season one and two suit was always fun. It was always fun when they came in. I put them on. Um, got to play around as Superman for a minute because that's a big fun thing. I love Green Arrow. I love a lot of the characters. I love the Flash and stuff like that. And I've got to wear some of those costumes. But Superman was always extra special because it is Superman, right? Like it
Hmm.
wasn't just like it wasn't a cosplay. It was Superman. It was Tyler's costumes. It was seen on screen or would be seen on screen. So
Yeah. What so what does I guess kind of a why do you like what does Superman mean to you? Why do you think he's like endured? And like what do you think like James Gunn just made a movie, right? So what aspects like do you think just in a whole of Superman, like what resonates with people that they kind of they yeah, we just kind of like why are we drawn to that character in your opinion?
yeah, like Superman's always resonated with me from a young age. It likely started from the obvious. It's Superman. He's super powerful. He can do whatever he wants. I grew up. I mean, I'm only in my mid 40s, but I still remember watching the Fleischer cartoons because they were on TV occasionally. And again, like I mentioned, Lois and Clark. The Christopher Reeves movies actually aren't my starting point,
Okay.
right? They were there. I watched them, but the Dean Cain show was what really informed what Superman meant. So like the
Mm,
whole his line of Superman is what I can do, but Clark is who I am.
yeah, yeah,
And
great line.
those yeah, and then the fact they referenced it in Superman and Lois, especially with the my mom made it with the costume, which was a reference to the Lois and Clark. Um, that kind of characterization really resonated with me more so than the golden era of Superman of being just this pure Boy Scout, is
Hmm.
that he's not infallible. He's not a god, right? Like he has these amazing powers, but he always has to make a hard choice.
Mm,
He like a few comics have dealt with it, which I've really enjoyed. There's a few origin ones like Birthright and a few others that have kind of touched on some of the points of he knows everything that's going on. So he
hmm.
can hear everyone in pain, but he has to choose who he helps.
Wow.
And because he can't be everywhere at once. You can't be in
Right.
China and in, the North Pole, and you can't be in the two places at the same time. And which obviously is where some of the stories develop the whole Superman robots and stuff too, right? To help with that. But like he knows, right? So for every bank robber he stops, if there's another bank robber, he can't stop it. And I've always liked that aspect. And then that's definitely post-crisis, original post-crisis Superman, because Clark as a human, Clark's a man. Um, Superman is a character, right? He's like
Hmm.
almost like a cartoon character in a way that he's there, he's bright, he's colorful, he can do all these wonderful things, but inside there's a man inside who wishes he could do more, who probably beats himself up every time he doesn't do things the right way. And again, that was mostly post-crisis in dealing with it. And other media has touched on it. The My Adventures of Superman, the animated show
Hmm.
that's
Yep.
still going on, that touches on those same feels. The James Gunn movie that just came out really touches on that
Yeah.
with Clark talking to Lex at the near the end of the movie, and that has what's kept him enduring. I think it's really easy to paint Superman as perfect,
Mm,
It's too easy to look at that and say, excuse me, say that he is this, I don't know, like I said earlier, like a god, right? Like
yeah.
he's incorruptible. He can't do things because yeah, you can't shoot him with a bullet, but that's not
Mm,
what hurts him. What hurts him
yeah.
is hearing his parents have a fight or have an issue, or his not being able to save someone, not being able to stop the world from it. Those things are what hits him. That's where you hurt Superman.
Mm,
And I think people who really like the character realize that that is what um, endears him to some of us.
yeah.
Yes,
Totally.
there's the element of Superman who's cool and powerful and fun, and then there's the Superman who has a depth of character, and that's what's kept me on him. That's what's kept me really enjoying. I think Superman and Lois also dealt with a lot of that, where Clark had to deal with interpersonal things where Superman could just go lift a big rock and throw it on top of a volcano,
Right.
but or save a train from falling. But Clark has to deal with like his kids,
Mm,
spending time with his kids, spending time with his wife, showing that he loves people, being around his parents and whatnot. So it's like I guess in a way, Clark is who that character of Clark is the part that always keeps me coming back. Superman's cool. He wears couple different costumes, but Clark is the who he is, right? And Superman is what he can do.
yeah, totally. Now, I'm glad you brought up Superman and Lois again. Obviously, you worked on the suits on the show. But so this show, as you were talking, I kind of had this thought, like it brought out a new dynamic. We've, other than Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason's run, we'd never seen Superman as a father before. And
Mhm.
this show brought him on the big screen to the father role. So, like, what is your overall thoughts of Tyler as Superman? And then, like, diving in a little bit more, I know you're also a parent. Like, how do you think he portrayed a father, and more specifically, Superman being a father, and how he would handle those situations? I would love to get your take on that.
Yeah, no, as a things change when you have different points of life, when you go through pain or suffering or you have kids or all those kinds of things, they change your viewpoint on something that's going on your media. And I think Tyler's version of Superman was written very well as a father. Especially in the first couple seasons where he had to be strictly dealing with having uh, two kids that are very opposite, the sporty, cool, athletically driven one, which is what Clark always wanted to be. Which, if you watched any Superman media or read Superman media, he always wanted to be the sports star out of all the things he wanted to do. And then you had the other kid who just could never connect with it, couldn't figure out what
Mm,
was wrong. And I know as Superman and Lois went on, they dealt with that more and more. But it was very realistic. Like I don't know if I would tell my kids when they were little that I was Superman. I
mm,
know that was a big contention of the show. Was like, well, how did they not know? Why wouldn't he tell them? But it's like, have you ever told a toddler something? They tell.
yeah,
They tell on you all the time.
right,
Although it would be my dad's Superman. Okay, sure, sure.
right.
Like there's that story with Henry Cavill's nephew who said that his uncle was Superman, and the teacher's like, he keeps telling everyone that his uncle's Superman, and we really need to talk about this. And the kid's mom's like, yeah, no, no, his uncle's Henry, and
That's great.
so because that's what we do. We don't pay attention. But yeah, no, I think Tyler handled it very well. Tyler, all the portrayal on screen and what everyone sees when he's talking about the show is bang on. He really has that energy of being Superman, being
Hmm.
Clark Kent, and being Clark Kent as a dad. And I really liked all of his facets in person, with no cameras. Just because we're working on his stuff, he'd come in a few times, and I talked to him. Like face to face a number of times. He also has that genuine demeanor of assuredness, of listening, of hearing people out, of talking about what he wants, but not in like a, well, this is, like an actor, more like a someone who's really just nice
Hmm.
and kind and always having time. He allowed me to be a fan. The amount of
That's
times I had a
great.
Superman, I have a lot of Superman clothes, and I
Okay.
never knew when he was coming in. So, but the amount of times he'd come in and I'd be wearing a Superman shirt, And be like, hey, I didn't do this on purpose, I swear.
Yeah.
Um, but he was good. Like very very like he liked to joke. He was lots of smiles. So like he as Superman, I think he was a really good choice. It's the
Hmm.
same vibe I get from David. Like I've never met David Cornsweet, but I get the same vibe. And I think
Hmm.
one of the greatest things I like about seeing Tyler, I mean, he got to be Superman for 4 years. See him on stage with like Tim Daly and Brandon Routh and all like sometimes they have like what 4 or 5 Superman, Tom Welling, all of them up on
Right.
stage. And when you watch them, it's really funny because they all kind of act the same, right? They all have
Hmm.
like the same kind of way that they like to talk about the character or the love they have. And a lot of times it doesn't matter if they were big fans as kids, how they inputted into the role were all different stages of Superman's life. Like
Yeah.
if you get Dean Cain talking to Tyler Hoechlin, they're both at like opposite ends of Superman's life scale,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
And yet they still uh problematic Dean Cain aside for things he said, um he still they still approached the character in a way that you could tell had a core. And I think finding that it's got to be it's got to be tough when you're casting Superman because you got to find that core, and somehow they do it every time. They find that
Right.
person that has it, and like I said, I feel that with Tyler a lot, and that's in person. I've seen it in interviews. I've seen on screen. He really does exude that core, and I'm really glad too, because like I said, I remember when he was first cast, there was a lot of vitriol online about how that
Mm.
he doesn't look Superman, he's too skinny, he's
Yeah.
this, he's that, the other thing, and he ended up being a huge highlight for the Arrowverse, the Arrowverse's end, right? So
Yeah.
um, all his inclusions and stuff like that was pretty amazing for him.
I second that. I met Tyler at a convention, and of course, you're like, oh, what are they going to be like in person? How will they be? Like, are they nice? Are they genuine? He was genuine, and actually, I was just on another podcast talking about him, and I said for some reason, I felt like I was the most starstruck when I met him. Like I met Brandon Routh too, and it was still cool, but I felt like I was extra nervous for, and maybe it was recency bias of like meeting the most current Superman at the time, because at the time, David Cornsweet, I'm not sure if he had been cast in 2024. Maybe he had, but whatever. That movie hadn't been released yet. So yeah, for some reason, and he did just seem like a genuine human being, kind. And I think as we think about Superman, talk about Superman, that is something that you see throughout the comics, throughout media. Maybe Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's version may have been a little different, but nonetheless, I think he wanted to do the right thing at least. And yeah, and so that's what you see with Tyler.
Yeah, no,
Now,
I enjoyed standing in line to meet him at Washington State Summer Con, because it was like, hey, remember me?
right,
And
right.
then like here I'm wearing you right now, and
Yeah, yeah,
with my own spin, and he was like and he maybe he stepped back and wanted to look at my costume and stuff like that. So it's he has a genuine interest in Superman, and it's gonna follow him for the rest of his life, right? So.
yeah, yeah. So we're coming kind of to the end here. But let me talk about this. So let's say somebody else is into cosplay, into costume making.
Mhm.
What advice would you give them? Like what skills should they develop? What mistakes should they avoid? Like if someone were starting today, like what would you say? Okay, like if you've already, if you're doing it or want to get into it, or even want to possibly like work, in the realm of like superheroes, like how would you like encourage people to get started, or things they should do, or things like that?
Yeah, this is something I often do here. I like mentoring. So the one thing that a lot of cosplayers struggle with is patience.
Mm,
Um, a lot of times procrastination hits, and that's understandable. You put things off and you do things last minute. The old cosplayers finishing their cosplay right the day before the convention. But patience and not rushing things is very important. Like the amount of times I've had to reiterate, a bunch of us in the cosplay community have to reiterate to new cosplayers is don't forget to iron your seams, right? Like that's part of the patience aspect is that
mm,
you can build a t-shirt, But if you rush everything, it's not going to fit right. You're not going to understand why it's not doing right. So just take your time and double check your measurements. Make sure you're taking, like, you don't have to sew when you're sewing. You don't have to sew it like it's a machine gun. You can take your time, and once you learn that skill, and you can move on, you can get better and better and better. Even my own costume making abilities, you know, gotten so much better now than it was 5 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, Also, make mistakes. Allow the mistakes. Have Add LEDs to your costume that burn out and figure out why. Do weathering that doesn't look right. Do bad airbrushing, because that's the only way you're really going to learn about what works, what doesn't work. One of my first things I did that was bad is I did Anakin Skywalker, and I did pleather tabards, and they didn't look as good, but they also trapped in so much sweat. So
Oh
afterwards,
no.
I was so sweaty. And so since then, I've only used leather. And I know that could be hard for some people for various reasons to use leather. But just as an example, after that, I realized I need to use leather.
Hmm.
And you have to learn in some ways like that. So patience, and get messy, try new things, talk to people who've made things. Be like, what did you do to make this? Like, what do you use? I've brought the idea of contact cement to people that never heard of it before or never used it before, and I was like, but I learned about contact cement when I was in like grade school.
Hmm.
So it's learning those things. Not everyone can learn everything. So I also always suggest collaboration.
Hmm.
Like I absolutely love when I have a shop down in my place here with like a laser cutter and 3D printers and a big work table, a leather sewing machine. And part of the reason I like having those is because people can come and use them. You don't have to have an industrial
Hmm.
machine yourself. You can come use mine, learn on it, but also you can hang out with other people. So you can, one time I had like 6 people here working on different costumes,
That's
and
awesome.
you can collaborate, because then you can turn to a person and be like, hey, how would you do this?
Hmm.
Does this make sense? And then you try something and it didn't work, and then you can try something else, workshop it together. Because uh, I always like to show, and something you could always look up to if you like. We were Ocean Drive Leather was nominated for CAFT-CAD, which is a Canadian film and television costuming award, and
Okay.
we were nominated for it for Batwing on Batwoman.
Hmm.
The reason why that's pertinent is that we had to list everyone who worked on it and
Okay.
what they did. So like I'm listed on there, but and all the people, but everyone is listed, and it's not one
Hmm.
person. Oftentimes cosplayers are like, I have to do this all, especially when you're just beginning. I have to do everything myself. It's like, no, no, no. You learn your skills, but like a costume like that took like 20 people to make. Like
Wow.
don't think, right? Don't think that you have to know everything out the gate. Not everyone can make gloves. Not everyone can do leather work. Not everyone can do sewing even, like I
Hmm.
sewing is a fairly new thing for me because I avoided it like crazy. Um, but yeah, patience, work with other people, collaborate, ask questions, get messy, make
Hmm.
mistakes, as the Smash School Bus used to say. Like that's really the best way to learn. And as you grow, and as your talent grows and your work gets cleaner and better, that's when opportunities will come up. The amount of times people get asked to make things. Like I know people who do amazing wig work. Their first one's terrible, and now they do commissions and they do wigs for other people, right? So
Hmm.
you never know what opportunities will come by. You never know if you might get drafted into helping with a film. You never know,
Yeah.
right? Like I didn't expect to work in film, and I got that because of my passion and my costume making ability at the time, which was pretty low comparatively to where it is now.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, don't rush to the final result. Don't try and take projects too big that you can't, that's going to take harder to do. Start small, have fun, join the community, find people in the community, because that's what makes things, that's what's fun,
Yeah.
right? If you're gonna make things. Plus, what's really cool is if you want to do a Superman costume and you know somebody who wants to do a Batman costume, you can team up, and then you go to a convention, you all do costumes together, right? So
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun that way.
Yeah, I like you said what you said about the community and collaborating and how like really if you had you not been in you said it was a Facebook group, right? You were in with some other
Yep.
prop guys and like
Yep.
probably when you joined you didn't know that. So I think
Oh no,
it's
like
like,
I created that group. We created
oh
the group to talk
and they
about, yeah,
joined yours?
just and we just want to talk about Arrow and all the details, like what
Yeah.
brand are their shoes, what brand is the arrows that they use, and then they joined. And
Wow.
if, yeah, had they not done that, I wouldn't have come to BC to interview them. Yeah, no.
Yeah. And so community, putting yourself out there, starting a group, you're like, who's going to join my group?
Yep.
It's like you just never know who's watching your stuff, who sees your stuff. And that, like you said, you've grown a lot as a costume designer, obviously.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just pretty amazing the opportunities you can get if you have a passion, if it's fun,
Yeah.
if you're you just go for it.
Well, and just being learning like at Ocean Drive Leather, I predominantly did 3D modeling and texture design, and the stitchers did the sewing. But they didn't
Mm,
stop me from going in and asking questions, seeing
yeah.
how they did it, talking to the pattern makers and understanding how they made the pattern, why they made the pattern the way they did, to now it has affected everything. So you
Yeah.
learn
That's
just by
awesome.
asking. Ask questions. Be
Great.
annoying.
Yeah, definitely. So, where, as we're about to wrap up, where can people follow your work online or maybe see some of those pictures of things that you work on?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best. I do have a Facebook page, but I don't really use it. And I do have a YouTube channel. They're both under this Justin Online. You can check those out. Instagram has a lot more up to date of things I'm working on, and it does have a slideshow there of all the work I did in film across all the CW verse, including other local production stuff like Riverdale and whatnot. And the YouTube talks about a lot of the costume stuff. I haven't done a lot of talking about stuff I've worked on my YouTube channel, though eventually I probably will. Just getting my thoughts in order and waiting long enough time to make sure I don't get in trouble.
Right.
Uh, but no, yeah, check me out there and you can see some of the work and yeah,
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. So, we are going to stay on for about another 10 minutes. So, if you want to hear the extra of me talking to Justin, head on over to my Patreon and sign up for that, and I'll give you that. But thank you, Justin, once again for joining me. And
thank you for having me.
yeah, and thanks to everyone who listened. And this is Brent with Comics CC Studio. I will CC you later. And just remember, stay super.